All right, so this week, like I said, we're hitting up some of just HTML basics, and we're going to learn kind of HTML, what it is, things like that. So one thing I'm going to do in here is I'm going to utilize, I've got this set up where I can save my work as I'm, building it within brackets here. So the second I hit save, it's going to publish out to a location that everybody can get to. So if anybody wants to follow along with me or see what I'm doing, you guys can always go look at that work there. So where that's going to be is curl.php.cs.dixie.edu/web1400, and then I should probably go make that directory really quick here. I've got milestone 1. I'm just going to call it Web1400. And in there right now was my index.html file that I was monkeying around with last time. So that's kind of where that is. So as soon as I save it, it goes out to that location. You guys have to basically look at your work locally. And if I was doing it locally, I would just double click on that and I could see this locally. Or I could go back and type out the URL here and that would pull up the same page. So you can see the difference between a local URL versus online, an absolute URL. So if you guys want to follow along with me, you can pull up that URL right there, and inside of Chrome, just go to View Page Source, and you can see the code on your own computer as I'm saving every single update. What on earth I might be doing. Okay, does everybody understand that? Follow along with me. Okay, and I do that mostly so, if you guys can't see it as easily, or I cover something a little too fast, or whatever, that you guys can look at that. And not only that, if I am going too fast on some topic or something, just throw up a hand. If you don't fully understand it, throw up a hand, and I'll try to just rephrase it another way that might make it easier. Yeah. So on Chrome, and I would say from now until the rest of the class, everybody should probably use Chrome. We're going to use something from time to time called Inspect, and you can go through and look at different code and look at the CSS and different stuff that we'll do with it. You can get to, on Chrome, you can go to View, Developer, and View Source. I just do the Command Alt U is another keyboard command to get to the view source. And that way you guys can look at the actual tags that we're using and everything like that to understand what we're doing there. Okay, everybody good with that? Any other questions? All right, let me go refresh the file tree here. Refer back to the slides time to time. All right, so last time, if you remember, we did talk about some basics of HTML and kind of what each tag did. Do you guys remember what this tag does right here, the doc type? I think we talked about it briefly, didn't we? We did, right? Pretty certain we did. Who wants to take a guess on what on earth that's all about? I know you want to. Go for it. You got the look in your eye. Yeah, we're using HTML5. Perfect. That's it. So how about this tag right here? Anybody else? Yeah.
It says we're using English.
Yeah, we're using English, but more specifically, we're going to start some HTML tags. But they're going to be an English version of that, right? Okay, good. Head tags. Alicia, you know what head tags are? So tags typically have an opening and closing. So you're right. You can see an opening and closing HTML tag and head tag and title tags and paragraph tags. Anybody? What's that? Head tags go first. You can almost think of like your head's up on top of your body, right? And you can see the body down below. But what kind of data does this store? Do you guys remember what we called this? Metadata, all right? And metadata is data describing data often. And so in here, this stuff isn't going to show up on our page, all right, through here. You know, and you could try, and I've seen a lot of students where they'll go through and they'll do like an H1 and, you know, and they'll do high in there, and you can see it will show up in here, but this is invalid code, and if I go run it through a validator really quickly, you can see where it's showing that it has errors in it. And so we're going to talk about that validator here in a little bit, but this stuff is reserved for the body right there. And so kind of going back, the body tags, again, really are our, you know, what's going to be seen on the page itself in here, inside of the viewport. And that's what we call this little box where stuff goes. Yeah. Oh, sorry, you're stroking your hair. I thought you were going with the hand there, but you're just, you know, doing that. Whoa, I got you, Carl. Okay, so let's start showing you guys some tags and common tags and things like that. This right here, if I was to wipe out all of that, and minus this line, I would even say minus that line, that right there is really the default kind of template you should use to start all of your projects from now on. Yeah? So inside of Chrome, you can just right-click and go to View Page Source, or you can go to View, Developer, View Source there, and that will pull up, you know, exactly what I have. So if I save this really quickly, and you can see where I get the pinwheel of death here, and I go back and I refresh it, you can see how that's changed. I'll go back here and refresh it, and you can see how there's nothing on the page anymore. So as I save each one and look at it, you guys can just refresh and see it. Okay, so in this class, though, I'm going to actually have you guys put this robots, content, no index, no follow. That just means that search engines are not going to go index you, so people can't find your content right now. So a normal page would not have that, but for your homework, which I don't want you guys' homework floating around the internet, just throw that on, and they won't index your page and go look at it and save a copy of it, stuff like that. All right. So probably one of the most common tags that are out there, so we're going to go into our body tag, is an H1 tag. And we kind of used that on the last assignment. And an H1 tag just looks like this. I'll just do an H1, and well, we'll save that really quick, and we'll refresh it. And you can see it's made everything bold, and it's made it quite a bit larger than normal text, and it actually puts some space above and below. And there are tags that go from H1 down to H6. So I'm just going to quickly update those and look at those really quick. Oops, yeah, 6. Still got that save going on. Oh, I've got a problem in there. Where is it? Somewhere after my H3. Oh, there. I don't know why that didn't go. But you can see an H1 down to H6, kind of what they look like. And typically, these header 1s, header 2s, header 3s are reserved for the tops of, you know, kind of think of a newspaper. Do you guys remember newspapers at all? You know, the header, the kind of title up in the top, and that's what those are going to be used for. So you kind of give like a, you know, the name of your business, kind of like we did in the last assignment, what you guys want to do, stuff like that. Another common tag, and we did use it in the last assignment, is your paragraph tag. And paragraph tags, you know, are just reserved for a lot of text. So if I go through here and I give a lot of text in here, and it's still updating, refresh, you can see, you know, line of text coming through. Often, you know, what I'll do in here is just go pull out some lorem ipsum, and lorem ipsum is just kind of filler text that exists, and you can go out to this site and generate out some of this nonsensical text. So I'm just going to do that. I'm going to grab a bunch of paragraphs, and generate out 5 paragraphs. And I'll just throw those into some paragraph tags. So we'll do something like that. And that way you guys can kind of see what these paragraphs look like. So one other thing you probably recognize that I've been doing as we've been going along here is I've been indenting a lot. Let's look at those paragraphs really quick. That's saved. Here we are. So paragraphs, you can see their style that they apply puts a little bit of space above and below each element, and so you can kind of see it there. But going back to this indentation, you can see where I'll have a parent, and then I'll indent in, I'll tab in on my keyboard kind of who its children are. That way when I look back, I'm going to get these vertical lines that help me see exactly who is a parent and who is a child. Because what's going to happen, again, if I forget to, like, let's even indent this one. You know, you can see that this H1 text is a child of this H1 right here, and it's a grandchild of the body tag, and the body tag is a child of the HTML tag. And so you kind of get this child-parent relationship going on. But if I forget one of them, you know, and I don't see that these two are not, you know, the same, and if I don't end one of those right, then, you know, it thinks everything is an H1. So you've got to have these closing tags in order to make sure stuff looks the way it wants. And this is why we call it a markup language. You're just marking up different sections of text and things, and you're adding different style to it. So that's kind of how that works. That's ugly there. Does anybody have a really good idea for a website we can build this semester? Like a theme? I always, like in the past, you know, we'll do some monkeys. I think we've done some squirrels, and just a topic of choice that's funny. Then, I don't know. I've got Lorem Ipsum right now, but come on. I know, Sally, you've got something. You're full of all kinds of goodness.
I really am. I was going to say Stranger Things, but I don't know if that's what you're looking
Stranger
for.
Things? You guys liking Stranger Things? You never watched Stranger Things? Well, maybe you'll go watch it now. All right, well, let's do that. Let's make a site on Stranger Things. Like a fan site, or what is this?
Sure.
Okay. All right, Stranger Things. And so we could, you know, that's our title. That's going to be up in the tab. We can put our H1. I wonder if there's like a Stranger Things. Sometimes they do release different Ipsums. Stranger Ipsum.
Cool.
Let's go see what this one is. Yeah, let's go 5 paragraphs. All right. Stranger Ipsum. How nice was that, guys? It just totally worked out there for us, didn't it? All right. So, Kalisha, you need to go home. That's your homework this week, to go watch Stranger Things. Anybody else not ever seen Stranger Things in here? All right, you guys go with Kalisha and go watch Stranger Things. That way you guys can... how did you guys miss out on that? Have you guys heard of it?
I don't have TV or Netflix.
You don't have Netflix? All right. One episode. I actually started like 10 minutes into it, like when it first came out, and I was like, I can't deal with this. I don't like scary stuff. I can't handle it very well. And then I started watching it, and then you get kind of sucked in the story, and then you're like, well, crap. Now I got to finish it.
It's not that scary once you get into it, too.
Are you kidding me? It's totally freaky. Again, I'm a wuss when it comes to that. I don't actively watch horror movies or anything of that sort, so that was like pushing the bar for me there and freaking me out pretty bad. Still fun show though. All right, Stranger Things. That's where we're going to go. All right, so let's say you want to have some space. We can apply what's called a line break into our code somewhere. So mistakes have been made. We can go over here and we could put in these little breaks, okay? And what you'll see there is it will kind of force a line break into the page. One thing you'll notice about the break tags is they do not have a closing tag. So there are some tags, like I said, that just don't abide by that opening and closing rule. But you kind of have to think to yourself, like, does it really need a closing tag to just go down a line? Yeah.
So whenever I've used break tags, without closing it, it doesn't validate for me.
So you're probably thinking XHTML, okay? Because those, if I refresh that and I go run that through the validator, those should validate just fine. And in XHTML, now if you remember, there's other doc types that exist out there, and this is probably a good, you know, I questioned if I should teach this to you or not, because we've gone so far that we've moved away from XHTML that it doesn't really matter as much anymore, but this is your history lesson, okay? So there are tags that don't need them, okay? So for example, this meta tag here or whatever, and you could say I'm going to go add a meta tag like that, and that would be the appropriate way of doing it. If you have a tag that does not need it, back in XHTML, you would put the space slash, and that would denote an opening and closing within one. And so when we would do a break tag, what we would do is we would say br space slash and something like that, or you don't even need that, you could do that, and that would work. And so all these, we used to do that for XHTML, and it just denoted that. But in HTML5, they're like, seriously guys, come on, like, do we really need to do that? We all know no one's using them anyways, and nobody cares about validation. Let's just get rid of it, and we'll work fine. So in HTML5, again, you guys don't really need to know that or use it. But back in the day, and often when I say back in the day, I'm really only talking like a few years ago, okay? That's how that worked. So break tags will go down a line. You can also use another tag called a HR, horizontal ruler, and that will throw a little ruler across, and you can see that line going across. What you're going to find with HTML, you're going to want to design and make things look really pretty and all this stuff. You really can't, okay? And I wouldn't try to. I just would say it's going to be ugly. Be okay with that. When we get into CSS here next week, then that's where the power comes in and makes our pages look good. Cascading style sheets is what that stands for. But right now, we're just building the structure. And you really can go into, you know, for example, we'll look at this page right here, and let me go pull inspect here really quick, and I'm going to go break their, let's see, let's go break some CSS. So I'm just going to do that, and that went all wonky. But you see how without CSS, everything looks really dumb, right? Same kind of deal. This is just HTML. That's what you're looking at there without the CSS applied. So right now, our page is going to look like that. It's not very scary, Sally, and you know, doesn't have all that imagery and background graphics and layout and everything that comes with CSS. But to get to that, we need to show you guys some HTML tags so you know how to do this and everything like that. So the next tag I'm going to show you guys, I personally don't like this tag. I think it's a stupid tag. But the book shows it to you, and your first assignment has it in there, so we're going to do it really quick. Is just your block quote tag. And in here, if I was to put a piece of text, it would kind of indent it over. Save. And you can see that piece of text kind of tabbed over. So if you want to take stuff and kind of tab it over in block quotes, you can use the block quote section there. There are some other little inline tags we can use. So maybe we want mistakes have been made, and we want that to be bold. So we'll put the little B for bold, and we'll hug those two tags around there. And refresh that, and you can see mistakes have been made is in bold now. You can emphasize it as well. Maybe the word, don't take it personally, okay? And we'll put a little I for italics, or italicized, and we'll put it there. And you can look at, still saving, right there where that just looks a little bit different than the rest of the text here. You can mark stuff up if you want to. Let me take those off. And we'll use the mark tag, which looks like this. Still saving. There it is. Kind of highlights everything how you want. We could also make that small. And small, I don't know, I mean, you can look at it here. Just slightly smaller. We got subscript. So just sub, oh no, sorry. I'm writing super here and thinking sub. Gosh. You can see how that's kind of pushed down below the rest of the line. You can also use superscript for up above, and subscript to go down. You can see how that one's up above. So if you had like a, the 9th of September or something, you'd put the TH kind of a little higher up and use that if you wanted to. Some tags I think are more appropriate. Instead of bold, strong is more appropriate. And this is a newer tag and more for an accessibility reader where you're describing what it is used for. And strong by default is just going to make everything look bold, but you can give it other attributes with CSS and things like that that are more appropriate to kind of make a phrase a stronger sentence. And same with emphasize, EM for emphasize. So it's going to look like italics by default, but again, it's more of that kind of semantic markup that you might use for other stuff. Let's get into some unordered lists. These are all dumb. I mean, you'll use them every now and then, but they're really not that fun. Let's make a menu. So we want to have the word, we'll have like home. Come on, who's watched Stranger Things? There's a bunch of people. Give me a menu here. If we're making a fan site, what's our main menu? Characters. We'll make this all uppercase. Keep going. Give me like 5 or 6. Music. Okay. Cast and crew. Okay. Cast and crew. That little ampersand is going to be a good segue into another discussion here in a little bit. Keep going. Any others?
What about the 2 brothers that made it? What's the name?
Yeah, the 2 dudes there. I watch a special on them.
Oh.
What's their names? The producers. We'll just go with that. And maybe like contact or something. We'll go with that. Is that a decent menu right now? Okay. So I want to take all of those. The Duffer Brothers. Let's just go with Duffers. That sounds funny. Makes me think of like Duff Beer off of Simpsons for some reason. I don't know, and Duff Man. You guys remember him at all? Really old. Simpsons been around forever. How long has Simpsons been on TV? Isn't it like 30 years or something crazy like that? I mean, I haven't watched it for like 2 decades, but it's been a long time. All right, so we're going to put this into an unordered list. We're going to use these UL tags. All right, and each item, well, before I do, let's just show you what it looks like. Okay. One thing about HTML is that it ignores white space. So as I put content in, it just plugs it all next to one another. So even though I'm going down a line, you can see it's going across here. So again, white space is being ignored. All this space from here over to here, it just essentially gives it 1 character of space. So we want to throw this into an unordered list, and an unordered list is just a list of items with little bullets next to them. Okay, so we're going to apply the unordered list. And then each specific list item, we're going to use the li for, again, list item, and we'll close those off. And I'll go through and just give all those that. I'm going to tab all those over. One thing you can do is you can use tab and shift tab to kind of tab around, big blocks of text if you want to do a bunch at one time. So that will make it a lot easier in whatever editor you're using. Most of them are tab and shift tab. Okay, so we'll save that. Go back here and refresh it, and you can see how that's been made into a nice list of items that we can use. So it's a fine, unordered list or whatever. If we want to indent those, the way you indent those is inside of a list item, you come down, and then you do another unordered list. So what are the Duffer brothers' names? The Duff. Look them up.
Matt and Ross.
Yeah, that's a good name. Okay, and then I'll do those list items in front of them. So that's the appropriate way of doing a sub or a nested, list within. Okay, and we're gonna probably use those maybe later on if we do some like rollover menus or something like that later on possibly. But that's how you do it. Now, if you want to combine those with an ordered list rather than an unordered list, you just change the UL to an OL. And so very quickly we can, still saving, you can see how that's got a 1 and 2. And if we want to change the whole thing to an unordered list or an ordered list, we'll just change it to an OL. So OL, UL, list items, if you're going to put them nested, you have to do it with inside of a list item of one of the items on here, okay, like we've done there. But I don't care about the Duffer brothers that much, so we're going to axe that and change those back to an ordered list that we'll use to kind of build out our site. All right, from here let's talk about a description list. This one I do think is dumb. I never use it. The only time I think I've ever used it is teaching you guys in class here. But the homework has you do it, and so that's fine, whatever. Definition list, use the DL tags, okay? And then you're going to do a DT, like so, and underneath it you'll do a DD. And those are not indented, or like a DD does not go inside of a DT. This is your title, this is your definition. So if we've got Stranger Things, and let's just say this is a definition of what Stranger Things was about. We could refresh. We could refresh that, and you could see how the title, it kind of throws it out on the side, and then everything else kind of gets tabbed over. And if you wanted multiple ones, you do those all inside of your definition list, because it is a list of items, like so. And you can see, if I was to go through, like a dictionary or something, that's really what this is used for. Again, I never use this tag, so you'll use it once on the homework. That'll probably be the last time you ever use it.
What does the DD stand for?
Definition data.
Oh.
All right, so right here, you see how this is red? We'll talk about why this is red. Let's say I wanted to, put a whole bunch of spaces right here before OK. I want to say, don't take it personally, OK, or whatever, and I wanted to make that, big or something like that. And I save that, okay, and I go back here and I refresh it. And this is large, this is uppercase, but why are all those spaces not there? I mean, I went through right here and I put a ton of spaces in, but for whatever reason, it's not showing up here. So can anybody tell me why that'd be the case? Jake? Ignores white space, all right? It will give one space in there, but it's not going to give a whole ton. So if you want to force them in there, you need to use an ampersand NBSP semicolon. And what that is, this is what we call a special character, okay? So if I put a whole bunch of those in there, each one of those counts as a space that I'm forcing in. So now I refresh, you can see that space has been placed in there. And we call those HTML special characters. And we can go pull up a bunch of those if you want, so you can look at them. Have you guys ever seen where people will go through and they'll do like images, maybe on a status, social media status or something like that? They'll have their name upside down, or they'll do something weird like that. You guys know what I'm talking about? Often those are made by using these special character codes. You know, and they're just different kinds of characters that are out there. And you can use them by using this ampersand and then a series of digits and numbers, things like that. There are a bunch of them, and one of them here is the space we can use. Another one that might exist out there is, for example, the copyright code. Like, so let's go down to the bottom here and say copyright 2019. We'll go with that ampersand copy, and I probably actually need to put that in front of the 2019. We'll put that there and refresh it. And if that's still saving, that's not going to work. Still not saving. There it goes. You can see how it's actually put out that little C with the circle around it, right? Let's say I made another list item and I wanted that list item to look like a paragraph, something like that. Okay, I wanted it to literally show the paragraph tag. We wanted to say something like paragraph tag or whatever. And that's not going to work because this is going to be interpreted as an opening paragraph statement, and we're going to be missing a closing paragraph statement. And this will probably throw, yeah, see how it doesn't show up here because it thinks it's a paragraph. So, you know, what we can do here is use a greater than and less than sign. So we'll do an ampersand less than there, and then we'll replace this one out with an ampersand greater than, something like that. And you can see how, you know, those simple tags force in those things in that paragraph will now come through because we intend it to look like that. So there's a bunch of these out there. Just kind of know of them. You can look them up if you're looking for like a trademark symbol or, you know, something weird. There's a lot of them out there. Tons and tons of these things, more than are shown often. These are typically the more common ones that people will use, but there's a lot of them. And the reason this was turning red up above is it's interpreting that as the start of a special character. So a more appropriate one would be amp, which is your ampersand, which is that little thing anyways, and it looks the same, but that's a more appropriate approach to using the ampersand in this case. So if you ever see those, that's what those are. All right. We're going to get into a structural element right now, a tag that we'll use to structure pages and break them off into sections. So as I'm looking on this page right here, we have different elements of our page. We have this big red bar over on the side. We have this kind of navigation area over here. We have this top section that goes across here, kind of this main body section through here of text. And when we get into CSS, we can take these sections and give them style and move them and resize them and do things like that. The tag that's most commonly used to structurally organize and apply style to these is what we know as a div tag. And so I might go through here and say I want to, and div just divide, okay, that's what that's standing for, or divider, or whatever you want to call it. I'm going to divide out my kind of logo header top section through here. And then maybe my navigation, I want to divide that out specifically from everything else. So I'll put a div tag in here and tab those over. Whoops. Like so. Maybe my main body of my page I want to kind of be divided out from everything else, and so I'll apply that there. And maybe my footer. Last, I kind of want to have it be its own little section as well. And each of these, think of it as in the sense of you're going to apply some sort of style or something to each of those. Now, if we go back and refresh this page, nothing really changed. I mean, nothing looks majorly different. Everything looks the same as before. But if I apply, and for example, if I come in here and I say style, and we're not going to get into this yet, background color red or something like that, you can see where that div tag is housing our H1 as well as our navigation section in there. Okay, so those divs do control big blocks of text that exist around, or not just text, but any element around your screen. And I turned it red so you can kind of visualize that and see that. And I could go through and do the same for each one of these, and you would see that, you know, there's one that houses all this content, and another one that housed just our navigation, and one that housed our footer down here at the bottom. So that's kind of what the div tag does. Now, in XHTML, we used to only use div tags, and we used them all over the place. Like if I go pull up this page right here, and I do a quick search for div tags, you can see we have 190 div tags in here, and you can really just see all the divs in yellow as we kind of go down. So div tags are used all the time. Get really comfortable with them. You're going to be using them all the time, and in HTML4 and XHTML1, that's what we used for everything. But again, that was just a few years ago. Now we've gone through and we said rather than being a div tag, we can kind of give more meaning to what these tags are really used for. And so maybe rather than calling this one div right here, we're going to call this one main, because it's our main body of our page. And so I'll close it main. And main works exactly like a div tag. They're kind of one and the same. They're just going to basically draw an invisible border around that element, and you could change it colors and move it and do whatever you want with it. But it's really just, you know, drawing that invisible line around it. Let's put one down here below. In this div right here, we're going to change this one to be footer. And there's the footer tag. And it is basically just saying, hey, this is the bottom of my page. This is the footer. And so rather than calling it div, let's just call it what it is. It's the footer. If I come up here to our navigation area, this div, I'm just going to change it over to nav for our navigation. And now when a search engine goes through and looks at our page and looks at all your code and you have all these divs, it's going to say, oh, here's a nav, this is a navigation. It's probably full of a bunch of links of something important. Let me look at these. And so you're specifying now that this is your nav. The last one we'll show you here is called the header tag. And the header tag should not be confused with the head tag or the head one tag. Okay, does everybody know the difference between those three? Because I get students screwed up all the time, and I'll say create a header tag, and so they'll make a head tag, or they'll make a header one tag or something, when I'm really meaning create a header tag, which is just like a div to encompass everything else. So just to be clear, head is metadata. It goes above the body, never in the body, and has no tags that will show up within the body. Your header tag is like a div tag. It's a structural element, an invisible border around it that breaks up a kind of a section that you can apply some style to later. Header one tag is just applied to a piece of text to make it look bigger, like we've got right here. Okay? Everybody good with that? Any questions? Yes, Hannah.
So the head tag, do you see it on the website?
The head tag up here?
Yeah, is that
So no, it's reserved for metadata. The only thing you really see is the title, which goes up here in the tab. But that's not within the body of the page. So nothing inside of your head tags will ever be seen within the actual body. So, you know, any of these tags through here, None of them should ever go inside of your head tags, ever. Or you won't validate and you'll throw all kinds of problems, and that's just dirty code. All right. Now, even though I'm using header and nav and main, you can still mix in div tags. And your homework's going to do that. I think it has you go in here somewhere and add a div tag, and we can write out Curl was so scared and he watched season 1. Okay, something like that. And you can see that that showed up at the bottom there, and it's, you know, just divided out from everything else. One thing to note with that, if let's say I did another one here right after, and I put season 2, is it going to go next to this or down below this? What do you guys think? You guys can see it down there. Who thinks it's going to go next to it? Raise your hands. Just wondering. Who thinks it's going to go below? Raise your hands. There's a whole lot of non-participation here, huh?
Sorry, what was the question again?
Is this one going to go next to this one or underneath this one? Because I've got this space where I actually hit enter and I went down. Okay? But I also did tell you guys that, you know, it ignores white space. So what do you guys think? You think it's going to go below? It does go below, and the reason is because of these div tags. If these div tags were not there, it would go next to. So if I refresh, you can see season 2 is down below. But if I took off where it was inside of one div and refreshed that and looked at it, it would go next to it. And again, it's just because of that white space is being ignored. All right? Div tags will break it down a line. Okay, I need everybody to understand that if you use a div, anything that comes after will not go next to it, it will go underneath it. And we call that a block element. And we're going to cover block a little bit more later on. But to kind of visualize this again, I'm going to apply this background color to that. Maybe I'll do 2 of them so you can see each. Well, yeah, I'll do this one too. And this one will make blue or something like that. And we'll refresh them. And you can see how the red goes all the way across the screen. And that blue goes all the way across the screen. And that's what we call a block element, because it's blocking off a chunk of area from your page. All right, is everybody with me on that? And again, we'll learn more about different display types when we get into CSS and block and inline and all kinds of things. But I wanted everybody to understand that if you're using a div tag, it will take that whole row. It won't just hug the words itself. It will go all the way across. Sally?
Sorry, this might be a stupid question, but is that kind of the difference between a div tag and a paragraph tag?
So a paragraph tag, if I apply that same concept, that style, let's go apply it up to this paragraph right here. Okay. Why is that? Oh, I didn't have my quotations in there. Okay, so I'm applying that background color red to that paragraph, and we'll go refresh it. Would you guys say that that paragraph is a block element or not a block element? It's block, and the reason we know that is because that red is going all the way across the screen. Now there is another tag that's very similar to div. However, it does not block out the whole tag, all right? The whole row, I guess I should say. And that's what we call the span tag. So let's put a span in here. I'll say, you know, Curl was really scared in season 1 again. Okay. And this time, to kind of visualize it, I'll do that same background color thing so you can see it. And I'll refresh it. And you can see how it's not going all the way across the screen this time. It's only hugging the words itself. And we call that an inline tag, okay? So if I come up here and I type out a bold on this, you act like you want me to be your friend, and I put those in bold tags, and I refresh it once that saves. if it saves. And come back here. You can see that that is, made that all bold. Would you guys say that that's a block element or an inline element now? What do you guys think?
That's in line.
It's an inline tag, and the way we know that is the style that's being applied to it is only on one line, and anything after, for example, Curl was scared in season 1, and I put in here down a line, Curl is scared in season 2, because this is using a span, which is an inline type of style. Curl was scared in season 2 comes immediately after it, not below it, like we saw inside of a div tag or a block element. This one has items that come after it, so we know that it is an inline, or it goes in line from item to item. Now I know that that might be a little much to take on right now because we're just touching HTML for the first time, but really, for the most part, any tag is going to be an inline or is going to be a block. There's some others out there like inline block and flex and grid and some other kind of more obscure things. This item right here that says home, would you guys say that that's an inline element or a block element? And why would you say that? Okay, Sally thinks it's inline. Who's with Sally? Oh, only one person is with Sally. This home button right here. Or maybe quizzes. Would you guys say quizzes is that a block or inline? You're saying inline. Who's with Sally and, tell me your name again? Landon. Sally and Landon. And Kalicia's with them too. Yeah, let's jump on that bandwagon, huh?
Actually, you know what? I changed my answer.
Oh, Sally just denied you two. She just totally, you got on and she hopped right back off.
Because isn't it block within its specific, I don't know, just tell me.
So I said, remember, block elements fill out to their parent.
Right.
Would you guys say that a div kind of encompasses that element right there?
Yes.
It has a bunch of children inside of it? And is it only hugging the word?
No.
No, it's actually going all the way across. So what do you guys think that is now, Kalisha? That is totally a block.
Sorry.
Okay? No, it's good. She led you astray. All right? So these are block elements through here. There's a good chance that this was made bold or something. I don't know. I don't know. There's probably some inline elements on here. But from what I'm seeing, for the most part, I mean, these are probably bolded, and these might be, the bold applied to them are probably inline, but there's not a lot of inline stuff. Most things in here are probably block. Yeah.
Buttons in line?
Yeah, buttons probably are inline. They're actually probably floated next to one another, and they might be block elements with specific, padding applied to them or something within. But yeah, I mean, they could be. So it's good to early on kind of understand the difference between those two, because HTML tags often come in with inline or block elements applied to them. An image, for example, is an inline element. If you have an image and you put some text after it, it goes next to the image, not underneath the image. And we'll learn more of those as we kind of go along, but as we're talking divs and spans, if you can wrap your head around if that's an inline element or a block element, it's going to make your life a lot easier later on. All right, so let's teach you another inline element. And on each of these list items, I'm going to put a little anchor tag and a closing anchor tag. And what anchor tags are is they're link tags. So you're going to link out to a specific page. So I'm going to take my anchor tag and do a hyperlink reference and say that this is going to go back to index.html. And let's refresh that and look at it really quick. Let's get rid of this red. And again, you guys don't need to know inline CSS yet, but it was mostly just there so you guys can look at it. And you can see how this is now underlined, and it's kind of hard to see on the projector here, but it's purple. And I could click on it, and it's going to go to index.html. And we could do the same thing underneath it for characters and music and cast and duffers and everything. And we need closing anchors around each of them. Now, this is probably a good time. Well, let's look at that really fast. And all these are going back to index.html. And now when I click on them, you can see anything I click on is going to take me back to the index page. One thing you can do to kind of say go back to the same page is just do a little hashtag. We'll explain the science behind that later on in the class with fragmented link identifiers. But for right now, you know, just to save space and just keep index there, we can do that. That's going to look fine. All right, so let's say I do a UL, an LI, an anchor link, or text, and then I come over here and I take this anchor link out, but I put it on the other side of this list item. Do you guys see any problems with that? Yeah, you have to make sure stuff is in order, that you go in and then back out of it after the fact. Okay, you've got a parent child, and then in this case another parent child. It really needs to go parent child child parent. That's probably one of the most common errors I see with students is as you guys are looking at your code and you've got an issue like that. Let's back that up. Whoops. This will throw errors. Now it might look normal, okay? As I refresh that, it actually made it still looked okay. What you're going to find is the browser is really good at taking crappy code and making it still work, okay? But that doesn't mean that in this class I'm okay with you guys writing crappy code. You guys need to learn good skills early on as soon as you can. And so one of the tools we can use to help with that is called a validator. And if you guys go look up HTML validator, typically the one I'll use, and there's other things out there, is this validator.w3.org. Okay? And you can open this up, and you can take your URL, and you can paste that into there. And what this is going to do is it's going to go down through your page and look for potential errors that we might have. Now, in this case, we can see that we have an error on line 15, and the way that it's identifying this is it thinks there's 3 errors, and it's saying there's an end tag li seen, but there were still open elements. So we can see that on line 15 there was an ending tag we saw, but there were still open elements that were not closed. So it's expecting right here to close that anchor link, but we didn't. You know, we closed it after. And then we had this closing tag here that says, hey, an unclosed anchor link element was showed up on line 15. And then we saw no anchor element in scope, but an AN tag seen. So often, if you're using a good editor like Brackets or Sublime or something, they'll often build in this error checking right in, where in this case, it's making it red. You can kind of see that there. So I'm going to flip those around and fix it, and then just go back through and recheck the page again. And this time it came back with no errors. Another thing you can do on here, on the validator, is you can upload your file. So you could do that. You could also do direct input, which would be, let's highlight everything and copy and paste it in. And you can see my page in there and hit check, and then it will go check it and make sure everything's fine there as well. So there's some things you need to do. All of your homework, all of your pages, everything you turn into me from this point forward needs to validate. Not just the home page, but every sub-page, the students page, and we'll see the Dixie assignments here coming up this week. But every page must validate from there. So just so everybody's aware of how to do that. If you are using Chrome, you guys can go out to these Chrome extensions, and let's remove this one really quick here. And one extension I built that I love, and I just find handy. If you just look up mcurl, you'll find some stuff that I made. But this Validator Plus is one that I made, and you can just hit this Add to Chrome, and then add this extension, and you'll see that it'll come up here with this little HTML5 logo. And I like it because as I have your pages open, I'll just click on that, and it's going to go do a CSS validator as well as an HTML validator. And we'll validate your CSS once we teach you how to write CSS and all those things. But just really quick way. So know when you guys turn in your homework to me from this day forward, I am going to validate before I do anything. And if you don't validate, they'll take off a big chunk of points off your assignment. So I want to see every page, if it be the characters and music and cast and all these sub-pages, run them through the validator and just take a look at them, make sure they turn green and things are good. Okay? Any questions on validation right now? Alrighty then. So let's do that. So this link right here, index.html, I could go through and I could do something like this. http://curl.php.cs.dixie.edu/web1400/index.html, right? Do both of those go to the same page? Or are those two different pages? This one's going to index.html, and this one's going to http:// and all that other garbage /index.html. Same or different? They're the same, okay? And we can look at that just by clicking on them, and we can click on characters and home, and they go to the same page. But there are clearly differences between these two and how I've crafted these out. This is what we call an absolute hyperlink, okay? We're going to a specific URL in a specific folder, a specific location, very absolute. This is what's called a relative link, and it's based off of the location of the file you're currently in. So if I had a page here and I called it music.html, and I made a file called music.html, oops, and in that page too, let's just copy and paste everything over here, and I'll just change this one to like Stranger Things music or something like that. Okay, and we refresh that, and I clicked on music. You can see how I can jump between the pages here, right? This one's going to music, and that other one's that other one. But what's happening is with relative links, they're looking for file relative to their own location. These two, index and music, are both in the same folder. Okay, and we can look at that. They're both in there. So when I say go to music, I don't have to type out all that big old long URL and in order to get to that. When you're giving me URLs, you should not be using absolute links, especially, well, more specifically for your internal files. So if I'm going from index to music and to characters and whatnot, I should see relative links for everything. The only time you're going to do something that's absolute is if you're leaving the domain name and we're going to go out to google.com or something like that. Because that's not relative. I can't say, index.html and think it's going to go out to Google's page. I have to specify the domain name. And in this case, now when I click on characters, it'll go out to Google for me. All right? So that's the difference between absolute URLs and relative URLs. There's other kinds of URLs that are out there, or links that are out there. I'm going to just do those for each of those and delete music out right now. We'll add that later, probably. Oh, I was changing the wrong one. Sorry. All right, we'll go with that. Let's say on our page down the footer, for example, I'm going to put a break, and up above my break, I'm going to put email me, email Matt at at dixie.edu. I probably should get rid of that double at and just say at, something like that. And I want to make it that if I clicked on, email Matt or something like that, that it would actually send an email out to curl@dixie.edu. And so to do that, let's surround it with an anchor tag. Okay, so we want to make it so we can click on it and have it do something. And we want it to, reference out something, so we'll do that hyperlink reference. And, we could do something like index.html like we've been doing. And that's dumb because if I clicked on email Matt, it would just go back to the home page, and that's stupid. That doesn't make a lot of sense. You can use a tag called mail_to, and then just type out an email address, curl@dixie.edu. And what that does now is it makes it that if I ever click on email mat, then it will load up the default. No, music's gone, so I gotta go back to index. If I click on email mat, it's gonna load up the default email client. In this case, it loaded up, well, it tried to load up mail really quickly there. I don't know if you guys saw that. It was super fast. Yeah, it just came up, I don't know, it's got a problem apparently. But it will try to pull up a default email client and pre-populate that with the email address you put in there. Now, that is something that the book addresses at this point in our instruction. But honestly, I don't like to do that because one, I don't use a default email client as often. I'll normally just go to gmail.com and look at my email that way, right? And two is if a robot's going through scraping email addresses, they could scrape that email address and put me on a spam list or something like that. That's one of the reasons why, you know, I often put these robot files on here so you guys are not being indexed by anything and it's not being found out there really easy. But that's how that would work if you want to do that. Again, there's better ways of doing that, but that's really how that would work. All right, we've covered pretty much all of the content for this section, this chapter and chapter 2 in the book. Do you guys have any questions at all you want to know? Yeah.
So I must have just missed it at the first or something, but with this page that you have up, you're just like saving really quick and going.
Yeah, so that's something specific to our network we've got set up that inside of my user folder I have a web server tag to that I can save directly to. You know, you guys have that as well, but we're not using that in the class. And so that's something that not everybody does. But I just got that stuff so I can save quickly, and you guys can just go to my work, you know, refresh it, right-click it, go to that view page source, and you guys have a copy of all the code that I just wrote.
So for us, we'd have to like re-updo
If you want to get a new server. Now, what's the way we test this? How do we go about this in your own workspace, guys? What's the way I told you guys to do it? You use like an editor to build it out and look at it, but to actually test it and see what it's doing, you guys need to open up your folder off your desktop. And if I move this out to my desktop, okay, I've got Web1400 on here right now. Just open up the folder, double click on the file, and that loads it up locally. It's not online at this point. It's just on your thumb drive or it's on your desktop or whatever it is. And that's why it doesn't start with an HTTP : // It starts with a file because it's looking on your own computer. So you can go through and build up your entire site, make sure everything functions and things are looking good. And then once it's all ready, take that whole folder and upload that whole folder back to your web server. Then you'll go to your web server, which will be, you know, some Dixie ID or something .altavista.org / and I think your first assignment is like Dixie2 / index.html. And if you do that, it should pull up your file. Now in my case, I called it Web1400, and let me put that back on my server, okay? And I've got it in there. And so I would do that curl business, and that would pull right up for me, okay? Other questions you guys have, or maybe you're a little hazy on, you want me to rehash out or kind of show you another approach or anything like that? Okay, I'm going to stop the video here.